Mark Rogers TV talking college football 24/7, 365, releasing my top 25 post week 3 action. Keep in mind that this is not my rating of who I believe to be the top 25 teams in the nation, 25 all the way up to number 1. This is not my opinion based on just who I think are the best teams. For example, I think that Ohio State is much higher in terms of their quality of play, in terms of how good they are and will prove to be at some point in the season than what they've shown thus far. Thus far, they beat Indiana, they beat Army, two pretty marginal football teams. They lost to Oklahoma in resounding fashion at home, so they're not rated as highly by me as by the national polls. So I'm rating these teams based on their performance to date, quality of wins, quality of losses, and also the performance on the field. So if you lost 52-0 to, say, Oklahoma versus losing 30-27, well, I give more credit to the quality of play in losing by 3 points to anybody than losing by 52 points to somebody. So the quality of play is taken into consideration. And then also, again, the wins and the losses. So here we go. And leave your comments. Of course, I'm going to get back to as many as possible, but follow the logic here. All right? It's based on track record. Some teams will be playing their most difficult opponents coming up and have yet to play anybody. Wake Forest right now is 3-0, but they haven't played anyone. So I don't have them ranked. They've got their shot at Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, and North Carolina State coming up. And if they defeat those teams, or if they play extremely well and still lose to those teams, I will rank them accordingly. All right. And there are teams in the top 10 that are going to shock you, but they have beaten better teams than some of the teams that are currently ranked in the national top 10 by the AP and the coaches. Here we go. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course, for the best in college football coverage. If you have yet to watch any of my videos, run through them, my analysis, but also the best bloggers and broadcasters in college football. All right, number 25 is San Diego State, coming off the big win at home against Stanford. Florida's at number 24. Of course, they pulled off the miracle against Tennessee, and their one loss is to Michigan. Yes, they got dominated in that game, but they did lose to a good team. 23 is Iowa. They beat Iowa State. They beat Wyoming. They have yet to beat anybody really good, but Iowa's at 23, and they are undefeated. Number 22 is Louisville. Lost to Clemson. No really good wins, but Purdue is turning out to be a decent team in North Carolina to a certain extent. All right, at 21, we've got Memphis, 2-0, coming off the win against UCLA. At number 20, yes, it's Florida State. They've only played one game. Yes, it was against what is most likely the best team in the country, or the second or third best team in the country in Alabama, but Florida State hasn't beaten anyone. Do I believe Florida State's better than the 20th best team in the country? Yes, I do, especially if they head to Yandre Francois. Even without him, they're still probably better than 20th in the country, but they have yet to prove that. At number 19, I've got Ohio State coming off the win over Army. The bad loss against Oklahoma, not a bad loss in terms of who they lost to, but in the manner in which they lost. Number 18 is Washington State. They're undefeated. Very fortunate to defeat Boise State 2 weeks ago. They've got the win against Oregon State in dominant fashion this past Saturday night. At number 17, Duke. Nice win in dominant fashion 2 weeks ago against Northwestern at home. Otherwise, they have yet to beat anybody really good. But Duke is undefeated. And consider, again, 2 Power 5 wins, Northwestern and 2-touchdown win Saturday against Baylor. At number 16, I've got Oregon, wins over Nebraska and Wyoming. They've looked impressive for the most part, except for the fourth quarter shutdown against Nebraska, but they held on for the win at home. Number 15, I've got Penn State. People are going to go crazy about me rating Penn State at number 15. But they beat Georgia State, Akron, and Pitt. Keep that in mind. Yes, they will get to prove it very soon and will vault up the rankings if they win the games. But right now, Penn State has beaten a pretty bad Pitt team along with Akron and Georgia State. They're at number 15. The teams above them have done more to date. Number 14 is Maryland with a big win, of course, on the road against Texas. Texas, the mystery team. They're 1-2. They're not in the rankings. All right. Okay, we've got Kentucky at number 13. I vaulted them up the rankings because they just beat South Carolina, who had two decent wins, especially the North Carolina State win for South Carolina. So Kentucky at 3-0 hasn't been extremely impressive in the first two games, but they won them, and they're undefeated now after defeating South Carolina, who was previously undefeated. Wisconsin's at 12. The BYU win was dominant, but BYU is 1-3 at this point and has looked awful. Okay, number 11 is Oklahoma State. Yes, dominant against Pitt, but again, it's Pitt, and they have not played competitive football and barely beat Youngstown State in overtime. So Oklahoma State fans, yes, they're probably better than 11th, but let's see them prove it against a little bit better competition. TCU's at number 10. They beat Arkansas. They beat SMU the last 2 weeks pretty impressively. At number 9, I've got, yes, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is not the 9th best team in the country, I don't think. But let's see them play Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and the like. Alabama in a couple weeks. I believe this week, actually, for Vandy. But Vanderbilt is 3-0, and they dominated Middle Tennessee State, and they beat a Kansas State team that was 2-0, ranked, coming off a 9-4 campaign. That's one of the better wins in the nation right now. Vanderbilt at home against Kansas State. So they're number 9 in the country. At number 8, yes, people will go crazy over this one. Cal. They're not the 8th best team in the country, but let them show it on the field. Thus far, they've beaten 2 decent Power 5s. One, they had to travel all the way cross country to beat North Carolina, who played a decent 3 quarters against Louisville and just trashed Old Dominion. Cal is number 8. They're undefeated. Number 7, Mississippi State with a big win. And again, a dominant win over LSU, 37-7. Georgia's at number 6. Of course, their big win at Notre Dame. They also dominated App State. Number 5 is Michigan. Not looking great the last 2 weeks, but they beat Florida, who in turn has beaten Tennessee. All right, number 4 is USC. Less impressive against Texas. We'll see how good Texas is. This is going to unfold week to week, and the rankings get shaken up week to week, as you can see if you've looked at my rankings and heard me run down the top 25 in week 2 and week 1. I shake them up because the resumes change dramatically, especially early in the season. Not so much shake up later in the season when teams have a 7-1 record, an 8-1 record, and they have a substantial resume. But for right now, the resumes change dramatically week to week. Okay, USC at 4. Oklahoma at 3. Maybe the best win in college football right now over Ohio State. Maybe. We believe it's the best win at this point. Alabama's at number 2. More dominant over Florida State than possibly Oklahoma over Ohio State, plus their other 2 wins against better competition in Colorado State and Fresno State. Tough call between Bama and Oklahoma just based on the resume. And at number 1, Clemson. No question. Just beat a good Louisville team that otherwise would be ranked in the top 25. Just beat a really, well, I've got Louisville at number 22. Clemson won that game on the road by 26 points. They also won at home with a dominant defensive effort against Auburn. Otherwise would be in the top 25 as well. And of course, they completely annihilated Kent State. Clemson at number 1. Those are my rankings based on track record, based on resume. They will unfold week to week, and we will update the top 25. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. As you can see in looking through the videos, we analyze college football like nobody else, and not just myself, but I bring on some great contributors across the country. Would love to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.